Welcome to a special edition of the Exam Room Live. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. And today, I think maybe for the first time on the live show, we are going in the kitchen, and not just anybody's kitchen. We are going into Chef AJ's kitchen, and she is going to be whipping up some delicious treats for us as we cruise into the weekend. So you're going to want to stock up on some ingredients and spend some time in the kitchen come Saturday, come Sunday, and your taste buds, they are going to thank you for it. So without further ado, I am so excited here to welcome Chef AJ to the Exam Room Live as we celebrate the 10th anniversary edition of her wonderful book, Unprocessed. There it is. Yeah, you've got your own copy too, Chef AJ. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for doing this on Friday, because I actually had a dinner party planned tonight. And now I'm just going to make dinner.
I'm happy to help out, and I will say it's early enough where I can hop on a flight on the East Coast and be out there to enjoy what we're going to make on the West Coast here. So let's get this done, and I'll hop on the flight, and I'll see you in a few hours.
This is going to take place at the island, but I just want to start the enchilada sauce here because I'm going to be making sweet potato enchiladas. So right here on my stove, I just have some water that I'm just starting to boil. And I developed this recipe probably 11 years ago, and at that time I didn't know how easy it was to cook without oil, where you could saute onions and garlic without oil. So there was another technique which easily can be used where you just cook it in the water. So I'm adding my onions. I like to take shortcuts because I have a bad thumb. These are pre-chopped onions you get them at Trader Joe's and most stores. So I'm just dumping it in the water with the garlic. I love tools that make my life easier. This is a Tupperware something or other, but other companies make it as well. And all you do is pull the string, get some exercise, switch hands so you're working the other arm at the same time, and you have just very perfectly chopped garlic. You can always buy the garlic in the jars if you like. Sometimes it has some funky stuff in it, so you want to check your ingredients. But this is also great. My little dog Bailey likes carrots for little amounts of nuts, but I just love tools that make my life easier. So right now, all we've got is onion, garlic, and water that we're going to cook in the water. And I'm going to stir that up. And then I'm going to head over to the island because this needs to cook for about 10 minutes while I start some of the other recipes. So you can just see, pretty easy, onion, garlic, and water. And to me, that is the foundation of cooking, not necessarily the water, but onion and garlic, at least onion. I feel bad for people that really can't have onion and garlic, especially because I don't use salt. To me, that is the foundation of all delicious food. So now we'll head over to the island and get started on another really quick and easy recipe.
As you're moving, what is it about onions that make it kind of this great base that you like, your starting point for all foods? What is it specifically about the onion that makes it so versatile in the kitchen?
I wish I knew. You know, all the plant-based doctors like Dr. Furman and Dr. Greger, it's in their daily dozen and their G-bombs. So they're really helpful. I once had a French chef tell me like 20 years ago that the foundation of French cooking was onion. And I'm like, that's the foundation of all cooking. I don't know what it is, but to me, it's hard to make food delicious without it. And I can't even eat a salad without some green onions. I love onions, and I'm so happy that they're also so good for us. But I bet somebody could Google what it is about onions that make cooking, because it's true. So Brussels sprouts are probably my favorite vegetables, and I really like the baby ones from Trader Joe's because they're very mild. They don't have that. When people don't like cruciferous vegetables or Brussels sprouts, it's the more mature ones. The baby ones are tender, and these are like 99 cents a bag. And I just cook them up in my little Pampered Chef microwave steamer, and I have steamed Brussels sprouts. But if you have time, what's really fun is to air fry these. And so we're going to come over here. We have this little air fryer here. I also have the Breville, but most people can afford a small one like this. You can get them. I've seen them for even $39 at Walmart. This is called a Go Wise. This was maybe $79. And I'm simply just going to put them in the basket of my air fryer, straighten them out. This is a pound of Brussels sprouts, and I'm going to cook them I do everything at 400 for 20 minutes because I never bothered to read that book, and I'm like, that sounds good to me. And I'm just going to push the button, and we're going to let these air fry. Air fry.
Did you steam them before you put them in, or
I did steam them before because it's out of habit. But yes. The truth is, you could have put the frozen Brussels sprouts in there as well. Because I never know what vegetable I'm going to eat for breakfast, I always steam them. That way they're ready. But now that we have time, we're going to air fry these. And even if we don't put the marinade on, which we are, air fried Brussels sprouts literally taste like candy. let me
Yeah.
tell you, that is
I'm
the
I'm a
truth.
big fan of steaming them too. I find that they come out a little bit more tender from the air fryer. I do the exact same thing. I'm so glad that you're sharing that with us today. It's just steam and air fry, and basically you can even eat them just like that, maybe with a dollop of hummus. So you're gonna kick it up a notch
I'm gonna
with
pick it
the
up too
balsamic
much
glaze.
with a special mustard and a special vinegar. But really, air fried Brussels sprouts, they're like candy. They melt in your mouth, especially when you, like you said, steam them first, and then getting those frozen baby Brussels sprouts that are more tender. We're gonna make the filling for the enchiladas, and in my bowl, I have already placed my sweet potatoes and my corn. I'm using the roasted corn just because it has a little bit more flavor. This is frozen corn, and you can get it organic at Whole Foods and non-GMO at Trader Joe's. I didn't have quite enough sweet potatoes when I cooked them, so you can actually get frozen sweet potatoes at Trader Joe's with nothing on them. So I have a combination of that, and I was too lazy to make my pico de gallo recipe from my book. But as luck would have it, my local Winco sells a salt-free pico de gallo with all the ingredients that I would make it with, which is basically just tomato, onion, jalapeno, and cilantro. So boom, I'm putting it in. That's the filling, and that's the recipe in the book. However, I like to put more green in my food whenever possible. This isn't in the recipe in the book, but I recommend it to do this. Believe it or not, this is 2 pounds of spinach. When people tell me I could never eat 2 pounds of vegetables a day, I'm like, really? Because this is what 2 pounds look like when you squeeze the water out. It's like it fits in my hand. This was the frozen organic spinach from Trader Joe's, but even the Winco had it. And I'm just going to add that to the filling because number one, it's going to make it look pretty, and number two, it's going to bump up the nutrition. And I'm going to put a food service glove on just because I can then really get into it and get it mixed really, really nicely while my water and onion are cooking. Let me just check it real quick. Yeah, it's doing fine. We're going to go over there in a second too.
I love the fact that you're about to get dirty. You're going to get hands-on in the kitchen. Forget a spoon, forget a spatula. We're doing it with our hands today.
Fingers were invented before forks, and there we go. So we're just going to dig in and get this mushed up, and it's just so pretty. Yellow, green, orange, red. It really is the colors of the rainbow, both nutritionally and visually. And this is it's such a great recipe for company because it's easy to make. Now I'm going to take another shortcut that's not in the book. Instead of rolling each enchilada individually, which is labor intensive, I just make it casserole style. I put the tortillas in flat. I do sauce, tortilla filling, tortilla sauce, and then I can cut it like a lasagna, and everybody gets their own little square. And I have people embellish it or decorate it. So what I'll do is on my Lazy Susan tonight for dinner, we will have all kinds of toppings from guacamole to sliced olives to jalapeno peppers to scallions to more pico de gallo to squeezes of fresh lime to tortilla chips. And then I let everybody customize their own. And people seem to have fun, especially kids, when they're doing this. So I could have done it with a spoon, but you see by using food service gloves, Charles, could you just tilt that a little bit? How quickly it just all came together, the filling. And there we have our delicious filling. And now we're going to just go back to the stove for the second step. It's getting hot in here. All right.
Yeah, I can tell that you've done this a time or two before. You've got this down to a science.
Charles, can we turn the air on in a minute? So I've cooked this now for probably about 10 minutes. You can see the water's cooking down. The onion is getting nice and translucent. And now I'm going to add 2 cans of my favorite tomato product. These are the fire roasted tomatoes. They come salt-free and not salt-free, so if you have a preference. I get these at Whole Foods and Sprouts, but if you don't have those stores, they also have them online. You can get a pretty good deal on Amazon. And I'm going to add my spices. Got my chili powder. I have this thing that I love to do, and it's not in the recipe, but I'm obsessed with smoked paprika, and I have never found a recipe, especially one with a Mexican flair, that doesn't taste better by adding a little smoked paprika and a tiny bit of chipotle powder, and that is optional. So we're just going to stir this and cook this. And what we want to do to thicken it is add something called arrowroot powder. You probably could use cornstarch, but I always worry about cornstarch because it's usually hard to find organic and non-GMO, and because corn is very heavily genetically modified. But when you want to use arrowroot, I recommend starting with a little bit of water and dissolving the arrowroot, same thing for cornstarch, in the water first to create a slurry rather than putting the dry powder in. So just going to stir that, and that dissolves very easily. And then I've got my sauce ingredients here. And then to that, slowly, I'm going to add my arrowroot, and this is going to thicken up. And we're going to let this cook for about another 10 or 15 minutes to get nice and thick and cook. And we're going to go back to the island and then start the cherry cobbler.
Do you make that slurry to prevent the sauce from drying out?
Well, to prevent the arrowroot from clumping. You know what I mean?
There you go. Okay, I got you now. Who doesn't have a fancy light like that in their kitchen? That's awesome. I love this so much. So we've got the enchiladas going, and you're going to do the enchilada casserole style.
Right, but I'm going to wait for the sauce to cook, and I'm going to move on to the cherry cobbler, and I'm going to start with the topping. And this is a pear whipped cream. And one of the things I did in my book, the 10th anniversary edition of Unprocessed, is I wrote Unprocessed in 2010. It was published in 2011. I hadn't met Dr. Goldhammer and a lot of the plant-based doctors. And I didn't realize that for some people, a lot of the higher fat plant foods like nuts and seeds can make it a little bit more difficult for some people to lose weight. For them, it can sometimes be a trigger food. So I kept all the original recipes intact, but I gave low-fat options for the recipes and also took out any sodium that was there from miso and tamari and things like that. So I had a wonderful whipped cream in the book, which was cashews and pears. And I realized that by using oats are still pretty high in fat, not compared to nuts, but compared to other grains like rice. And they create wonderful desserts. We're going to use those in the Snickerdoodles, actually. And so this is like the easiest. It's not whipped cream like, from a can, but it's a nice whipped topping for all of your desserts. And all I do is take a jar of pears. I like the jars better than the cans because I reuse the jars for storing my dressings, like my ranch dressing, for example. And you just take a jar. I have already drained these, and I've saved the liquid. I'll use that for some recipe. I don't know what. Oh, is this the right one? Hold on. Wait a minute. Wrong. Okay.
I wonder, is that like just kind of your method where you will save a lot of whatever's left over and use that in the future?
Always. I grew up with an aunt who was a Swiss chef at a cordon bleu restaurant, and that was the thing because she grew up, in World War II. Save everything, waste nothing. Even the basil stems she would save in case there was a shortage of basil. I'm just walking over here to stir the sauce, and I'll move right back.
See,
it's getting so thick, you'll see from the arrowroot. You just want to cook that deliciously. Okay. So we're going to make the whipped topping. It's so easy. 2 ingredients. It's just oats and pears, or nuts if you can use them. But I like to put in some vanilla powder. And vanilla powder, if you haven't tried it, please do. Because I promise you, once you start using vanilla powder, this is from Local Spicery, but you can get it on Amazon. Just make sure you get a brand without sugar. Once you taste vanilla powder, you're never going to go back to extract. I promise you. So we're just going to blend these in a blender very quickly.
I'm wondering with the vanilla powder, is it a cleaner flavor of vanilla?
Yeah, so Chuck, vanilla extract comes in 2 forms. It comes alcohol-free and regular. I used to be a pastry chef at Sante Restaurant in Los Angeles, and we couldn't use regular vanilla extract because it had as the first or second ingredient alcohol, and a lot of the celebrity clientele who were in recovery or rehab for alcoholism, and even that was enough to trigger them. So we would use alcohol-free vanilla, which was more like vanilla water, but it contained glycerin, which was sugar. So then when I got a job at True North, it's like I couldn't use either. We were using the whole vanilla bean, which could be as expensive as $6 a bean. And then vanilla powder is still expensive, but cheaper than the whole vanilla bean because it's basically just ground vanilla beans. You can't get a purer, more delicious flavor than that. So to me, when you're using extract, whether it's alcohol-free or not, you're basically using vanilla water. So I would rather not use extract, not use vanilla at all than not use vanilla powder. And so here I have my little whipped topping that we're going to use. And this is great just on everything. Fruit, the uses are endless. And if you wanted it thicker, you could put a little white chia season. You don't want to put black because it will discolor it. But it's pretty thick as it is. So we will put this aside for a second just for the plating. And now we're going to make, so the cobbler is basically in 3 stages. There's a streusel topping, there's a whipped topping, and then there's the filling. So now we're going to make the streusel topping. And so in the original Unprocessed, the streusel topping was made from pecans, which are very high in fat, coconut, which is very high in fat, and dates. And so what I did is I substitute for the pecans, the oats. I'm still going to keep the coconut in, but if you look at the difference of these 2 products, this is regular coconut, and 1 serving has 21 grams of fat. This is low-fat coconut, 7 grams of fat. So I'm going to use the low fat in this. And I actually haven't done this before, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work. And so I have my ingredients already measured out, the coconut, the oats, and then my spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla powder. I'm putting it in a dry food processor. So the food processor needs to be dry. That's why we're doing it in this order, because a wet food processor would not make it a dry little crumble. And we're just going to process this a little bit till it's kind of like a crumb consistency. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not trying to get a flour. And then we're going to take our dates, our pitted dates, and put those in. And so we're trying to make like a crumble or a crumb topping. And I'm going to go stir my thing again. I'll be right back.
As that's happening, I'm wondering what type of date is being used. Is it a medjool date or is it some other type of date? I guess we're going to find out here momentarily. I also see a few people in the chat wondering how they create low-fat coconut. I'd be curious about that myself. So a couple of questions. What type of dates were you using there? Were they medjool?
I am using the Deglet Moore, and the reason is I use so many dates, so many, that it's the most affordable option for me to buy the pitted organic. But hey, if you can afford medjool for everything, they're like, you know, the Ferrari of dates. I'm just going to process this just a little bit more.
I'm going to find out about the coconut here too. Stand by for that. I'm a big fan of the medjool when I can get them, but the other kinds will do just as well. They have this great sweet tooth, and I didn't know anything about dates really until I started to eat a plant-based diet, and then I just became a date connoisseur. There's not a day goes by that I don't eat something with a date. They're so versatile. I love them all so much.
And you don't need sugar. I'm so sorry. That just got to go another minute or so, and I'm going to bring the enchilada sauce over.
All right. What kind of dates, if you guys are watching this right now, the exam roomies, what type of dates are you a fan of, and how do you use them? We've had Dr. Bolsowitz on the show. He talks about putting a little bit of peanut butter on the date and then a chocolate chip or two, a vegan chocolate chip or two, and then it tastes just like a Snickers. So you have a little fun food hack there. I like to eat dates really with oatmeal. I think is really just delicious. Like just straight up, you can do it with oatmeal or other fruit.
Just so you know, this is a very old food processor, and I need to get a new one because this is fallen. But so we're looking kind of for like a streusel topping, a crumb topping that's going to go on that. I would like to actually process this a little bit more, and I think I will after the show. But I can still kind of show you what I'm going to do to plate the first one. All right, so this is nice and dry. So we're going to do. I'm sorry that we're skipping around, but again, we can't go from a wet food processor to a dry food processor. And I promised Chuck I'd show him the Snickerdoodles, which I actually mailed him some. These are the best cookies because they take like less than 10 minutes to make, and they store really nicely and stay fresh. And they're just so easy to make from basically 2 to 4 ingredients.
Yeah, you guys have no idea how good these Snickerdoodle cookies are. Like when this package came in last week and it had the cookies in there, I was like, ooh, cookies, that'll be good. And then I looked at the ingredients. I was like, literally 4 ingredients on there. And then I bit into one and my life has never been the same since. Like you have taken my life to the next level with these cookies.
When you see how easy it is to make, you'll be amazed. One thing I recommend, if you can get it, is a silicone baking mat. They have metal edges around the ends so you can pick them up and nothing sticks since we're not using any oil. If you don't have this, then parchment paper or silicone baking mat. So 3 of the 4 ingredients are my rolled oats, vanilla powder, and cinnamon. And I'm putting them in the food processor.
Gotta mix it up. Gotta mix it. Can you do any of this? I'm wondering if you just have a Vitamix or is a food processor critical for this? I guess.
Now I'm going to put the dates in, but I do have to let these run a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do so that there won't be dead time is while the food processor is running, I'm going to start making the enchilada casserole. And what I'm going to do is, just so you know, in case you can't hear me over the food processor, is the order is sauce, tortilla, filling, tortilla sauce. So you'll be able to watch me do that while the food processor is running. And I want to show you the tortillas I'm using because I like them. You can use any kind you like. I do tend to buy organic, at least where corn is concerned, because it's so heavily genetically modified. And I like this brand from Mi Rancho, which is called Thin Credibles. Not because there are less calories, but because they're so thin. it just makes it like it melts sort of. So that's what we're using. But you can use any kind, and you can tear these to fit it. It's actually like a lasagna kind of thing, what we're doing. So now I'm going to put the dates in the food processor for the Snickerdoodles. I'm going to let that run, and I'm going to show you how to put it in the pan.
I see a lot of people in here, a lot of Medjool date fans. Guys, I'm telling you, if you get this book and there's only one recipe that you make sure that it is the Snickerdoodles. I'm telling you, they are literally the best cookie in the world. And my wife, God love her, she loves all things sweet. And when she had one of these cookies, it's like she had to sit down. That's how good these cookies are. I will give you that type of endorsement. It is just unbelievably good. And yeah, like any date is going to do the trick. They're all good. But I saw somebody in the chat mention that they had never had a date. It may have been Tofu Tuesday, mentioned that they had never had a date before in their life. They had bought some, but then they forgot about them and they threw them out. I would encourage you, if you've never had a date, to go out and get a couple of different kinds and see which one you like. And yeah, as AJ said, the Medjools are indeed the Ferrari of dates. They are so sweet, and I would even venture to say heartier than the other dates. A little bit larger too. There's just something about Medjool dates that is just magical. And so I really like them, especially for people who are exploring a whole food plant-based diet for the first time. And they're really trying to kick that sugar habit that they've had probably for years and years and years, one that began as a child, and all of the added sugar that's in everything. Well, the Medjool date is a great way to still get your sweet fix without having to have all of that heavily processed, refined, added sugar in everything. And as you're seeing with the Snickerdoodle cookies, as they're going through the processor, you really can use them in just about any recipe to bring that sweetness level up to what it is that you are accustomed to. They are really, really, really super versatile. It's Medjool dates and frozen bananas. Those are my two things that I go to always for sweetness. And you can do cookies with them. You can eat them plain, put them with your oatmeal. Just do all kinds of. And honestly, I'm looking at Chef AJ now putting together the enchiladas here, and I'm thinking, if you got a sweet tooth, hear me out now. You could probably top the enchiladas with Medjool dates as well. It sounds wacky, but I'm telling you, there is not a single food out there that a date does not go well with. So, exam roomies, what are your favorite recipes to use dates in, right? I want to know how you guys eat your dates. And it looks like AJ may have gotten frozen on us there. Oh, no, she's back. There we go. Yeah, TG, that is a great way to describe it. Dates are like a chunk of caramel. You are absolutely right. Joanna, I blend dates to sweeten oatmeal and add a little bit of orange blossom water and sprinkle a little bit of ground pistachios on top. It is so delicious. I bet it is. That sounds amazing. That absolutely sounds amazing. That sounds like an overnight oats recipe from heaven right there. I've got some overnight oats right now in the fridge. That I used bananas, a little bit of peanut butter, some strawberries in there. It tastes just like peanut butter and jelly. It's absolutely fantastic. JL talking about frozen bananas. They're great with just a sprinkle of cocoa powder. Yeah, nice cream. You can keep it simple. 2 ingredients there. And I'm looking at this with that sauce that AJ just made. Let's pivot back over to the enchilada talk now. And I'm looking at that, and my mouth is just watering right now. That has cooked down so beautifully. The color on that is just extraordinary. And I know that if you've watched the show for any length of time, you know that I'm probably not the biggest fan of onions in the entire world, but for something like this, I think that the onions are going to absorb the flavor, maybe of the smoked paprika and everything else that's been put into that pot and cooked down so magnificently that even if you're not a fan of a bold flavor like an onion, you're really probably going to enjoy it in this recipe. And I wonder how much time was actually saved by going casserole style versus individually rolling them. You heard AJ talk a little bit about how time consuming it can be to roll these things one at a time. And yeah, I'm sure it is. But you know what? You have something that's going to taste just as good, is going to be just as much of a party pleaser, and perhaps even more enticing. You know, you see a big plate of something and you just want to dive in, as opposed to one teeny tiny enchilada. So now you've got this big casserole style and your eyes are just going to get real big and you just can't wait to put it on your plate. Hey, AJ, question for you. How much time would you say that you have saved saved by going casserole style versus rolling them individually?
20 minutes easy.
Ooh.
Because you know you got to roll it, and then they sometimes want to come out, and then you got to turn them over. And I think people like having a square just as much as they like having the tortilla. And also, I like filling more than tortilla. So you end up using less tortillas. But so you can see how it didn't take very long. I mean, my God, we haven't even gone 30 minutes and it's completely done. And now we need 30 minutes to bake it at 350. Always let it rest a little bit after coming out of the oven, sort of like a lasagna, because then you can cut it into these perfect squares. And these are amazing. So I apologize it took so long for the food processor. This is an old one. I plan on getting the Breville hopefully soon. You just have to wait until it fully incorporates the oat and the date. And if you have a good food processor, it's not that the Cuisinart isn't good, this is old, but a more powerful one like the Breville or the Nutrimilk, it will take less time. And so what I'm waiting for was the food processor to slow down so that when I pick up the batter and I want to like squeeze it in my hand, I can make a ball and I can break it in half. This is called the break points. And I'll show you how to make those cookies. I'm just going to move this aside, or actually, I could probably cook this later and cook the Snickerdoodles now if you prefer. So what's great about this is if you have company at the last minute, it's so quick. So I'm just going to put my batter out, and what I'm going to do, I just kind of smush it all together. I'm not going to make one giant cookie, although you could. And then I'm going to just break it into this. For me, this would be about 6 cookies would be perfect. So this is just without having to like measure or whatever. I just make it into a ball, and then I'll break that ball in half. It doesn't have to be perfect. You could use a cookie scoop, and then I'll break this into, I'm just trying to get them roughly the same size. And I will work on doing that again, using a cookie scoop if you're a Virgo. So that each one is perfect. You can do that. And so then what I do is I take them and then I roll them into a ball. Now you could eat these raw. I mean, there's no reason you can't. I just find them they're a little tastier cooked. So we're not going to cook them as balls, although you probably could. But by rolling them into a ball, it makes it flatten a lot easier. And we were worried we're going to get all 4 recipes done. We're almost done with everything. Can you believe it? I think the secret, Chuck, to food preparation is having everything out. It's called the mise en place. If you have all your ingredients out and measured, it doesn't take long. That's the part that takes the longest, and that's the part that I recommend everybody do in advance. Okay, so a couple of these are a little bigger, but that's okay. So then I'm going to take the palm of my hand, and I'm just going to press it down. And so I made a half a recipe just because I have so many already in my house. And these take only 8 minutes to bake, 4 minutes on each side at 350. And so you're going to flatten them. And they're so good. And they're so good when eaten with fruit like strawberry. I think I'm going to maybe turn these into thumbprint cookies. That's actually going to be my next step. I might do that. But what I like to do is after I've pressed them with my hand, I like to turn them over so then they're not sticky. And again, you can eat these right now. But I like to bake them at 350 for 4 minutes, and then I flip them for 4 minutes and take them out, and they're perfect. So those are our Snickerdoodles. And if you want ginger snaps, instead of using cinnamon, use a spice called gingerbread spice. I get it at the local spicery, gingerbread spice plus cinnamon, and then they taste like ginger snaps, which are amazing. Okay.
Could you use pumpkin pie spice perhaps in October?
Why not? Yeah, that's a great idea. So my Brussels sprouts are ready.
Oh, now you're talking.
I'll come over to you. So you could just eat it's hard to see because this is a black, I'll put them in a bowl. So these are just air fried Brussels sprouts. And for people that don't like vegetables, give air frying a chance because it makes everything magically delicious. So these really don't need a sauce. And these, if you're going to snack, man, this would be like the best thing to just snack on. I mean, this is like nature's finger food. And so this really, really don't need a sauce. But if you want to get fancy, what I like to do, and I learned this from Dr. Roy Artal. He is a vegan or plant-based doctor at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles who's board certified in internal medicine, sleep medicine, and pulmonary medicine. And he came on my TV show years ago and made these. And I didn't even like Brussels sprouts at the time. So I'm going to take and you see like 1 pound cooked. It's like nothing. It's like a snack. I'm going to put it back in here just for shaking purposes. And then I like to use a 50-50 mixture of your favorite mustard, which might not be my favorite because I'm not a fan of Grey Poupon, and your favorite vinegar. So my favorite mustards are 2. One is called wet because I prefer not to use salt. So West Spray makes a stone ground salt-free, which is very mild. But I recently discovered this company that makes a salt-free that's unbelievable. It comes in Dijon, garlic, and habanero if you like spicy. And I believe I have a discount code for Primo's Gourmet Food. But this stuff is delicious. So I feel spicy today. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of my mustard. Doesn't have to be a lot, a little bit. It's probably not even a tablespoon. This stuff is super spicy. And then whatever your favorite balsamic vinegar is, mine is the smoked hickory. But if you don't want to get, the fancy reduced ones, whatever you want. It doesn't take a lot of sauce. I mean, that probably wasn't even a tablespoon. The one thing I also like about this Pampered Chef thing is I don't have to dirty another plate. I can do it like that. Oh man, I would rather eat this than Snickerdoodles. That's how much I love this recipe. I'm not kidding. And then I like to put it on a pretty white plate, but this is delicious, I promise you. This is from the book as well, Quick and Easy Balsamic Dijon Glazed Brussels Sprouts. And that will be my first food of the day, whatever time I can get to lunch. So now we must finish the cherry cobbler. Okay, so what I have done is I have had soaking in the dates, the cherry juice from the frozen cherries. So that's going to be my liquid.
Again, never get rid of anything, right?
Waste anything. I mean, it's wasteful to waste. But there's always, that's some of the most clever things I've seen are people that use waste material like scraps to make broth, things like that. And so now I'm going to take the dates that have been soaking in the cherry juice in the food processor. And I'm going to add some chia seeds to it once it starts because that's going to thicken it naturally. And I tend to like the pudding or the pureed part a little thicker. Just got to find my food processor top. It's so funny how, here it is. How can things disappear just like that? So this won't take so long to process. And while it's processing, I am going to zest a lemon, or maybe I'll show you how to do that. Zest we go. Here it is. I see a lot of chefs using something called a microplane. I don't like the little shavings. I like this better because I like the nice long shreds. I don't know. I think it's prettier. I prefer that. If you've ever shaved, that's what it's like. You kind of press the tool against the lemon. You just want the yellow part. You don't want to go over the spot you went on because that's called the pith, and that's very bitter. So and this is an organic lemon. So for that, I recommend that. We're actually going to put that in here as well. And I'm also going to put the juice of this lemon. As soon as I find my little juicer. Okay, there we go.
I'm telling you, I got to buy a plane ticket to get out there tonight. Like I'm looking at all of this.
Please. Oh, it'll be so fun. So we're just going to juice this lemon just to balance a little bit the sweetness of everything else, the dates and the cherries. And there have been times where I haven't had a lemon and I haven't, you know what? I mean, this sounds funny, but if you don't have it, don't use it. It's okay. It worked. Just a little nice balance. So now we're going to puree this, and then we're going to add the chia seeds.
So while she's doing that, I would love to know what the exam roomies, what your favorite Brussels sprout recipes are. Like as I said earlier in the show, all I do is I will steam them and I will put them in the air fryer, and that's that. And then sometimes I'll eat those with baby carrots and hummus and call that a fantastic snack. And also I use that a lot for just sides and whatever my main entree on a particular evening is going to be. There's just something about Brussels sprouts, man. They go with everything right down to and including oatmeal. I don't know, AJ, if you've ever done Brussels sprout oatmeal, but
I haven't. I've heard of putting zucchini in oatmeal, but I haven't tried it. Is it good?
I mean, in all honesty, I haven't tried it, but I will. I absolutely will. I just think that Brussels sprouts are that versatile, you know?
They're so good. I have done oatmeal with shiitake mushrooms and garlic and sun-dried tomatoes. That recipe is in 2 books ago, but I've never done that. So I've got my cherries in a bowl, and what I want to do now is take some chia seeds. I'm going to use a whole 1/4 cup because I really want to thicken this. So this is going to be like the fruit puree part. So we're just going to put that in.
JL, your funny plot twist. We find out Chuck and Chef HA are really in the same studio. I wish.
Thicken. It takes a little bit of time in the fridge for chia seeds to do their magic to thicken. but I'm going to pour this mixture over the cherries. Like I say, it's going to need to thicken a little bit in the fridge. So I'm going to just plate a really small one to show, because I promise you, the chia seeds are like magic. You can make jam just by taking chia seeds and fruit and blending it, but it does take a little bit of time to set up in the fridge. But I'm going to plate a tiny one, because normally what I do for companies, I get a very pretty glass like this. And what I do is I put the cherry filling, the streusel topping, the whipped topping, and then I repeat layers and then top it with a piece of fresh mint. But this does need to set up a little. So just to show you the principle, I'm going to do just a tiny one, if that's okay. Maybe I'll do it in a dish so that you can see through the side better.
How long would you recommend letting it sit in the fridge if we had the time?
I'm going to say at least an hour. You're going to know it's going to thicken, you know, because it's just too watery to plate up right now. One of the things I can also tell you, another fun idea.
What?
If you don't want to go, we're having an odd number for dinner. It's going to be 7. It's like weird, but so we'll do 7 of these. But let's say you're having more people and you don't want to go to the trouble of doing that. Make a double recipe. Get what's called a trifle bowl. This was $15 at Bed Bath & Beyond, and I used a coupon. And you can do this. So you can do cherry, streusel, topping, cherry. You can do 2 layers, and it's a beautiful presentation. And it's a lot easier than having to do each parfait separately.
It's like an enormous goblet of cobbler. I'm on board for that.
So this isn't ready, but we're just going to show you the principle. So what we're going to do is we start with, and I'm using this glass so you can see through. So we have a nice layer of the cherry. I'm doing a very small amount because it's not ready, but I can take a picture. And then we take our streusel topping. And I'm gonna put this a little bit longer in the food processor, so it's a little bit more. Is the word contiguous? Is that a word? Or
we'll go with it. You know, make it up as you go along. It's delicious, no matter what you call it.
And then we take our whipped topping. So this is like a baby portion, just to show you the idea. And again, you can put more whipped topping or less, but this is so good. And you know, I haven't had sugar since July 6, 2003. Everything I do is with the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the whole fruit. And people don't eat dessert because like they don't know that it doesn't have sugar when they're using dates, and they don't know that it doesn't have eggs or dairy when you're making vegan desserts. And actually it was Dr. Barnard who endorsed my dessert book that's coming out next year, who even said to me once when I was going on a show called Cupcake Wars, I didn't want to go on it because I was forced to use ingredients that I didn't want to use, like sugar, oil, and salt, like really, like, and I hadn't eaten those things, but I thought, and he said, draw people in with the desserts, then hit them over the head with the kale. That's what he said to me. So this is how we get the people in. And so look at that. You were worried that I wouldn't take long. It's 40 minutes. I'm done, baby. Now I can talk about anything you want.
Man, you are a pro in the kitchen, Chef AJ. My goodness gracious. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And that all looks so good.
I could tell my company, I'd go, hey, if you can't make it tonight, this is what we made.
I'll tell you, you know what just struck me is I've heard you talk about this before. You know the exact day that you essentially broke up with sugar. And for me, it was the exact same thing. It's like, I know that my life changed forever, August 28th, 2009. It's funny how those dates stick with you over time when you make a change. And it really is, you know, you can look at it as a breakup, or you can look at it as evolving your relationship with food and making it so much better than it has ever been in your entire life. Do you find it funny that you can think back to that exact day when just like everything changed?
My life changed. Who I was changed. I remember it was Sunday, July 6, 2003. I took a plane to San Diego from Los Angeles. A cab took me to 7-Eleven, where I had my last Coke Slurpee with 8 pumps of vanilla syrup and my last regular Dr. Pepper Big Gulp. And I was dropped off at the Optimum Health Institute. You can't, your sobriety date is like, and next to like your wedding anniversary is like, maybe your birthday is like the most important day like it is to me, because I value it so much. A lot of people have trouble with this, and I understand the pleasure trap. is very difficult for people. But to me, abstinence is bliss. And those of us that have made it to the other side, that's why we remember my last day of flour was January 2nd, 2012. I didn't know that for people that are food addicts, flour can be just as deleterious, because for us, it creates the same drug-like effect. So yeah, I remember those dates, and they're important to me, and I celebrate every day, you know. And sometimes I actually calculate how many days it's been since the day, and I can say, well, it's been 5. You know, I don't know. Yeah, it makes me feel proud, and it makes me. Yeah. It's not a struggle anymore. I'm guessing it's not a struggle for you anymore either. I mean, at the beginning it was like the first week, the first month, but you know, 20 years out, I'm not thinking about. You know, if you used to smoke, maybe once in a while you might be in a smoky nightclub and they go, oh, a cigarette might be a good idea, but you're not thinking about it every day. And because I can make anything you can make with sugar and flour, I can make without just as good. I don't miss anything.
No. Okay. Well, let me challenge you. Here was my final meal on August 27th, 2009. It was 18 inches of cheesesteak. And I mean, just ginormous with all the toppings, and a bucket of fries. I'm not talking like a large serving of fries. I'm talking about a big old bucket of fries from Jerry's Subs. And that was it for me. And that was my breaking point. And that's when I walked away. Funny that my final meal wasn't Taco Bell, as much of a role as that played in my life. But it was funny though. At the time, I didn't even realize that was going to be that. I knew that it was going to be it for a time, but I didn't know that things would progress to where they are today. I had no idea that I was about to embark on this incredible health journey as I did. Did you had you made up your mind? Were you resolved right then and there? Like, this is it. This is my last Slurpee.
I had no idea it was going to be my last Slurpee. I knew that I had to go at least 8 days without them, because at the Optimum Health Institute, if they catch you with contraband, they kick you out and they don't give you a refund. But I had no idea. And so I started immersing myself in the classes there. And it actually was a class, I think his name was Dr. Bob, with the psychologist, that I realized I was going to have to break up with. It wasn't just sugar, it was sugar and caffeine, that combination forever. But no, I never, and I don't recommend anybody go in and saying, even if they're transitioning to veganism, I'm never going to have another piece of cheese again. No, you don't ever do that. You do what Dr. Lyle says, you run experiments, because most people can do anything for a short time, 3 weeks, right? So I don't think I would have been successful if I said, I'm never going to, I didn't know. I just know how bad I felt when I was on the drug. I know how bad I felt when I was detoxing from the drug. And then I know how good I felt off the drug. And so that's what keeps me sane, is comparing how I feel today, knowing how, and I mean, even though I was only, maybe 50 or 60 pounds heavier, for me, that was a lot, especially when you have a bad knee. But it wasn't even about the excess weight. I felt terrible being addicted to a drug. And I believe that sugar is a drug. And my life is so much sweeter without it.
1000%. What was the detox experience like for you? For me, it was hell and torture,
Crying every day, crying, a lot of crying.
Yeah.
It was, for me, the physical symptoms of getting off the drug were I had diarrhea, I had bloating, I had headaches. I mean, that's how you know it's a drug, because guess what? If I can't have Brussels sprouts for 8 days, none of that's not going to happen. And I can have Brussels sprouts on day 9. It's going to be fine. I just felt physically terrible. And then the nurses at the Optimum Health Institute says, this will pass. And then about day 8, where it was like, something was like, is this what it's like to feel like normal? Because you habituate when you're a drug addict. And I think sugar and processed food is drugs. You think it's normal because everybody else is doing it. It's not until you get sober that you realize, I call it the calm, stable brain, because you're not thinking about food every minute when you're going to get your next fix. Because that's all I thought about, is like, where's the next 7-Eleven? Because I was tied to having to live somewhere where there was 7-Eleven in walking distance, because I couldn't drive in the morning to get my drug because I was so addicted. I had to be able to get to a 7-Eleven. I mean, that's crazy. So I have not been in the 7-Eleven in all those years. I mean, I think I once was one in Vegas. I had to buy some water. And I always sometimes think, I wonder what a Slurpee tastes like. But the thing is, I don't think I'd like it anymore. Not because of the sickly sweetness, but the chemical taste,
For sure.
But do you ever wonder, Chuck, like if you were going to be convicted or executed for a crime you didn't commit, what your last meal would be? Because for me, it wouldn't be a Slurpee. I would probably have something along the lines of vegan junk food that I don't indulge in, like nachos, with like fake vegan cheese, not fake vegan cheese, but something like gooey, but it would be vegan, but it would be like maybe a little bit more hyper palatable. But I don't think I'm going to go back back to the Slurpees and the sodas.
No, I haven't really thought about what a last meal would be. I've thought about making sure that I don't find myself in a position where I would even have to consider that. But definitely, if you had to like really pin me down and get an answer, I think that honestly, roasted Brussels sprouts would be on there. Like I love them that much that I would say, forget Taco Bell, forget any kind of junk food. I just want all the Brussels sprouts. Give them all to me.
This
Right.
is of everything we made, this is my favorite, and this is all for me. Just so you know, as we're sitting here talking, it hasn't gone in the fridge, but it already is starting to thicken. So it's just going to thicken a little bit more as we get on with our day.
And one of the things that I really like also about your book here, we have a couple of minutes left. Like right up front, when you get to the recipes, I think that you put the reader's mind at ease because having been through this, we were just talking about it. It's like when you start this journey, you're always thinking about, well, when am I going to have X again, whatever your fix is. But then if you have a sweet tooth, one of your first recipes is cinnamon bun milk. I mean, for goodness gracious sakes. I mean, if that doesn't say everything's going to be okay, I don't know what does.
It's funny, the first Unprocessed, because I was a pastry chef and a sugar addict, I put the desserts in the first part of the book, and the publisher said, no, that's not where they go. So we moved them to the back. But one thing that's different is the color photos by Hannah Kaminsky that just jump off the page at you. If that doesn't convince you, nothing will. And we have a chocolate mousse tort. I almost made the chocolate mousse tort, but I didn't. Let me show you the photo of that. This is one of my favorites. The mint chocolate mousse tort.
Oh, that looks incredible.
It's got like 4 ingredients, honestly. It's like dates, cocoa powder, walnuts, which you could sub oats for. I mean, these are pretty easy. You can see these are not too difficult, the recipes. The most difficult recipe is probably the lasagna, and it's not even that difficult, just more steps.
And I don't want anybody to think that what I'm about to say is biased. This is just from what I have experienced in my own life, is that when I make these types of desserts or dinners for somebody who is not vegan, right? They are your traditional drive-through junkie. They say that it is one of the tastier meals that they can remember having. And I've even gotten the remark from them that somehow it just tastes cleaner. And so I think that that's really an important statement for somebody to make, profound statement, because I think it's at that point that door opens just a little bit, that they recognize, well, I'm eating something that doesn't taste clean to me. Like there's something better out there. And so that's how the door gets cracked. It gets cracked open with amazing, delicious, wonderful flavor that people have been missing, a lot of us literally for our entire life.
Yeah, because the sugar, fat, and salt, it's just so addictive, and you're not even really looking for flavor. You're looking for a fix. Dr. Goldhammer talks about how sugar, fat, and salt aren't foods. They're chemicals added to the food that fool our brain satiety mechanisms. So I think when you're in the throes of addiction, you're not even eating for taste. You're eating for a fix. And then it's not until you get clean and your taste buds get a little bit cleaner that you can, I can eat a piece of, not that I do, I love my ranch dressing, but I can eat a piece of romaine lettuce plain and I'm like, this is sweet. But you don't taste food when you're a food addict, when you're actively in the addiction. And so it's just the life it can be difficult to get to the other side, but on the other side, life is sweet, life is beautiful. And it's like, I can't recommend it enough.
And the final thing I will say, and you mentioned this also in your book, it's like it can be difficult to get to the other side, but I do believe also, AJ, in my heart of hearts, that every single person on the face of the earth who is struggling with food addiction right now has the ability to get to that other side. They absolutely can do it. And there's nothing magical about what you have done, what I have done, what anybody else has done. And I say that not because it's not an incredible feat, but because we all have that same ability. And if we all have it, it's not really all that magical. So tap into this incredible resource that you have inside of yourself and just push yourself through. And when you get to that other side, I mean, it's like what was Will Ferrell said in that movie, Old School, I see blue and it's glorious. You're right. And that's just kind of how I feel. Like it's glorious being here. And I never want to leave this place.
When I eat now, it's like every day is Christmas. It's like I eat my lunch every day. One of the things I do is I wait till I'm hungry. And I'm like, I can't believe I get to eat all this delicious food and have a calm, stable brain and have have a lean body. It's wonderful. And I wish that for everybody. I always sign off my Weight Loss Wednesdays saying, I believe you can have both the health and the body you so richly deserve, because you're worth it and you can do it. It's, you're going to have to maybe make some changes and it might be difficult, but listen, this is not just available to a few people that are on social media. You can do this.
1,000%. 1,000%. And I recommend doing it with the 10th anniversary edition of Unprocessed. And there is a link to pick up your copy right now in the show description or in the episode notes. AJ, thank you so very much for bringing us into your kitchen today. I hope that everything goes swimmingly at dinner tonight. I really hope that I can make it. I'm going to check flights now.
But 7's an odd number. I needed an 8th guest anyway. So
let me see what I can do. I'll see if the wife will let me go.
Thanks, everyone. Be well.
All right, Chef AJ on the Exam Room Live. What a fun episode. A special way to end the week. So, guys, thank you so very much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoy all of these recipes. The Snickerdoodles will change your life. The Brussels sprouts will change your life for the better every single day that you're there. Can't wait to try the cobbler, the enchiladas. Like, everything about this is just extraordinary. And the fact that you are here to enjoy that with us as well means the world to me. So for everyone here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. We'll talk to you again soon. But until then, keep it plant-based.